such an honor to be here with all of you. I really enjoyed the time that many of us had together last night, and just meeting people who came from so many different walks of life, from different life experiences, but who came together for a shared vision and with a shared hope of creating a stronger, healthier America. I was very excited, and it was really inspiring. You know, I was reflecting this morning that it was almost exactly 5 years ago to the day that I received a call from President Obama's team that changed the trajectory of my life and began my journey in public service. But the truth is that my journey in public service began many, many years before that when I was a child because of the example set by my parents. An example that taught me through what they did, not what they said, that it is through our service to each other and our service to a cause that's greater than ourselves that we find true joy, true fulfillment, and true purpose. And serving as Surgeon General was an extraordinary privilege in so many ways, but it was also an extraordinary education. I saw so clearly in the lives of the people that I met in rural farms, in fishing villages, in industrial towns, and in bustling cities around the country. I saw many reasons to be hopeful, but also many examples that taught me more about what was happening under the surface in our country. One thing I saw, for example, very clearly, was that people of all ages and backgrounds were struggling with a deeper emotional pain. People didn't come up to me and say, "Hi, my name is John Doe, I'm struggling with emotional pain." But it was clear in their stories. And with just a little bit of discussion, with opening up an opportunity to explore it, that pain came to the surface. And what I saw was that that pain was driving violence. It was driving addiction. It was driving suicide and illness across the board. And I saw the roots of this pain were also manifold. They were to be found in the experience of trauma, in poverty, in homelessness. They were to be found in the experience of racism and discrimination. There were many sources of the deeper pain that people were experiencing. But what I also came to see very clearly was that this deeper pain was not just affecting people's health. It was affecting how our kids were doing in school, how people were performing in the workplace, how engaged we were in our communities, and even our ability to come together and dialogue in a respectful, productive way as a community. And it's hard to meet anyone who doesn't wish right now that we had more of an ability to dialogue as a country, as a community, about the big problems that face us. What I really was seeing as I traveled across America were the consequences of a world that was structured to address disease, but not to foster well-being, not to recognize that there are deeper roots to what ails us that we have not been addressing through our traditional healthcare system and through our traditional policies. And now, the reason that I am here, the reason I believe that so many of us are here is because I believe that well-being really is the fuel that allows us to be more and to do more, and that creating a world that is grounded in well-being is now the task of our generation. I mean not a generation defined by age, but a generation defined by a vision, a shared vision, of what will be required for us to capture the full promise of our communities. And doing so will require us to create a society grounded in well-being. Now, ultimately, this is maybe a vision that many of us share or share strands of, but the real question is, how do we achieve it? And to be clear, yes, we will need strategies, we'll need partners, we'll need resources. All of these will be very important. But there's another thing that we will need in this journey that I want to call attention to today. We will need moral leadership as well. Why do I say moral leadership and not just leadership? Well, it's because I believe that moral leaders are those who reflect their values in their words and in their actions, who lead by example. And I believe also that being a moral leader means standing up for truth, for reason, for science, and for each other, most importantly. It means speaking up for the most vulnerable among us, recognizing that we cannot truly thrive as individuals unless all of us are thriving as a community. Being a moral leader means being absolutely clear on those values and giving voice to them. Now, to be a moral leader requires clarity, the ability to see where there's a gap between the values we aspire to and the values that we're living by. It also requires courage, the courage to call out that gap, to challenge our institutions, our traditions, sometimes even our culture, to close that gap. But perhaps most of all, what it requires is a choice on how we lead, a choice to lead with love and not with fear. Because that's a choice that's facing so many of our communities all across the country. We see fear everywhere, manifesting as anger, as insecurity, as worry, as anxiety. I've seen it in the faces of parents who are wondering if the water is safe for their children to drink in Flint. I've seen that worry in the faces of, and that fear in the faces of parents who have lost a child to an opioid overdose and are wondering if their other children are going to be safe. And I've seen that anxiety in people all across America who look at the state of our politics and wonder, do we really have what it takes as a country to come together and solve big problems? The fear is all around us. But it's especially important in moments like this that we lead with love, that we reach deeper and recognize that love is that source of inspiration, kindness, compassion, that ultimately brings out of us our best selves, and that is in fact our greatest source of healing and strength. I remember being at an event in Philadelphia where I asked an audience of 400 people, I said, how many of you look at emotions as a source of strength versus weakness? And about 399 people raised their hands saying that they associated emotions with weakness. But love is more than an emotion, it's also a value. And it is our greatest source of healing and strength. It is the oldest medicine that we have. And as a doctor who has written scripts for many medications over time, I will tell you that it is often too easy for us to forget that it is far more powerful often than the other medicines that we prescribe, and one that we forget about at our peril. I mean, in the end, the path to creating well-being in our lives and our communities is not about transforming people into something that they are not. This is about returning us to who we fundamentally are. I believe that at an innate level, we are born with the capacity to lead lives full of love, joy, and strength. Yesterday I shared the story of a father that I met some years ago, Mark Barden, who lost his son Daniel in the tragic Newtown shooting. And the pain of losing a child, I think, is more than, it's the worst pain that anyone should have to endure in their lives. And Mark and his wife and his daughter bore that pain. And when he met with me, he told me that his son Daniel did this thing on in school where whenever he saw a child playing alone on the playground or alone in the cafeteria eating lunch, he would just instinctively go and sit with that child. Sometimes he would talk to them, sometimes he would just sit there and be present. Mark didn't teach Daniel to do this. He just did it because he knew that that's what was right. He knew that there are times when all of us will feel pain and we need to support each other. He knew that we are better somehow when we're together versus when we're alone. And I look at my own children, my 22-month-old son, my 5-month-old daughter. I look at the things that they say. I look at how our son will just go up to another child and automatically give that child a piece of whatever he's eating because he believes that it's important, not just to share, but he wants other people to be happy. Just in the same way that he will feed me and my wife Alice food when he's eating because he wants us to partake in his joy. I look at our children doing these things that come so naturally to them and I wonder, are they going to be able to maintain that? Is something going to happen in their lives that is going to stamp that out for them and make them think that such kindness puts yourself at risk, that it's a sign of weakness? And the truth is that the reason I'm here is in large part for my own children, because I know that my kids cannot be truly safe unless the streets in their neighborhood are safe for all children. I know that my kids cannot truly learn in school unless the schools in their community are good for all children. And I know that we cannot all truly be well unless the circumstances and environments in which we all live enable all of us to be well. So that's why I'm here. I hope that in the journey that we are embarking on together, journeys that many of you have been on for many years in your own careers which are extraordinary, are so impressive and deeply inspiring to me. But this journey we're starting together, I hope is that we can recognize that we are writing the next chapter of what our community, our country, and the world could look like. My hope is that we will make this a world that's worthy of our children, that's worthy of us, and worthy of future generations to come. Thank you all so much.